guys have probably seen this slide once or twice before, the old Altiris lifecycle management slide. But I wanted to show this just to give you guys a quick review or overview of really what we're talking about with regards to deployment solution. So DS typically only covers two of these different pieces of the lifecycle. Specifically deployment and configuration, so your standard OS deployments, managing the network configurations, specifying exactly how to deploy images to devices, and managing those devices themselves. And the other piece is really the transition and migration portion. So hardware refreshes, being able to manage the personality of a user, and having that user's information transition from system to system or device to device. The rest of the lifecycle management here is quite simply the whole function of what the Symantec management platform brings. So essentially, you have the ability to go from start to finish, identifying assets, managing the contracts of those assets, and then utilizing the deployment solution specifically to facilitate the imaging and the management of those devices themselves from a quick point in time standpoint, being able to deliver tasks very quickly and rapidly. Application distribution, patch management, being able to simply deploy software to your devices when you need to, at the time that you need to. Patching them and managing how those devices stay up to date from a vulnerability standpoint. And then following the standard life cycle here, business continuity, making sure that all of the data is properly backed up and there's some recovery functionality within the platform for your devices and your users so that they have a seamless and consistent feel. Monitoring and all of the system monitoring, standard problem resolution with your service desk, and then back again to the transition and asset identification. So I'm going to hop in real quick to the solution very quickly to show a couple of things. One of the things that are typically asked is, what is the Symantec management platform, and what does it bring, or what does it give me the ability to do, specifically with regard to deployment solution? And that's actually what we're going to talk about today. So essentially, this platform, the architecture of the solution is a three-tier solution. There's a SQL database that manages all the details about the solution. There's an IIS front end, a web server basically, which is your Symantec management platform, and then there's an agent, and that agent or that client, the agent is deployed to the clients on demand as needed through policies as well as through a myriad of different mechanisms for being able to deploy the agents. Essentially, the idea is that you want to be able to manage those devices. And I have a very small subset of systems in this demonstration here, but this isn't really the focus of what we're looking at today. So we're going to go into the specific pieces of what you're going to do in order to set up your deployment environment, as well as some different scenarios. As an example, Symantec has offered what's called, within the Symantec management platform, the management solution. I have the ability to manage all of my systems, all of my software, as well as different jobs and tasks specific to whatever I need to do. The solution itself is very robust and has the ability to do just about anything that you want. The thing with deployment solution specifically is you need to set up your environment to be able to give you all of the details for what you need to do based on the different types of scenarios that you may have. So as an example, let's say you may have different types of scenarios within your environment where you need to do pre-boot installations or installing, deploying images to your systems, or doing even scripted OS installations. Deployment solution gives you the ability to very quickly add those pieces or set up your infrastructure to be able to deploy and run and manage all of the tasks that you need to from within basically a single pane of glass. And so at the start, we would go through all of the settings, the specific pieces required to set up deployment solution. So creating pre-boot configurations, which basically is my Linux or my WinPE pre-boot environment, giving me the ability to remotely boot a system and manage that system from a single location without having to physically touch that device. The next piece is going to be driver management. In fact, I'm going to skip driver management until a little bit later so we can discuss that in depth. The deployment solution, in addition, though, gives you the ability to do image multicasting. So very simply, multicasting your images so that you can get the fastest and quickest deployment out to your devices. From a functional standpoint, DF gives you the ability to do something called initial deployment. And initial deployment is simply giving you the ability to boot into that computer, boot into a brand new computer that has never been in the environment, and giving you the ability to specify different tasks that you want to run on that device from an initial deployment standpoint. Initial deployment is not something that you typically would turn on at the start, unless you needed a specific task or had a specific requirement for that particular initial deployment case functionality. I'll get into that a little bit deeper in just a moment as well. So continuing, essentially setting up the infrastructure, I can offer or specify the OS files that are going to be available from an installation standpoint. So if I had any particular operating systems, I specify to add those files here, and I can specify the platform type. I can specify the platform type, and as you can see, there are a ton of different platforms that are available out of the box. Obviously, all of the Windows-based solutions or servers and OSs from Windows 2003 going forward, essentially giving us the ability to do scripted-based OS installations utilizing the different types of platforms here. I simply specify my OS files here, and then those particular files will be integrated into the solution to allow me to be able to run a bare metal-based installation or scripted installation for my devices. I can also specify OS licenses, so how I'm going to manage the licenses within my environment. Not only can I specify the operating system, but also specific to that particular OS, I can specify a particular product key. And if I have multiple product keys, then I can also specify those per operating system type. And then at a later date, that information will be available to me to be able to deploy my images very quickly. So going back into my deployment section here, for those of you that are familiar with Pixie, Pixie is a pre-existing, pre-booted environment that allows you to boot a system that does not have an operating system on it to allow you to be able to make some sort of communication to that device from a remote standpoint without having to necessarily physically touch that device. And some of the options that are available within the deployment solution here are giving you pieces such as a predefined computer. So if you have a list of systems that you want to be able to have automatically deployed whenever they connect to the environment, you can specify that you will respond to those predefined computer systems. In addition to that, you have the ability to respond to unknown computers, so systems that have never been in the database or have never been associated to the Symantec Management Platform or DS in any way, shape, or form. This gives you the ability to very quickly deploy devices, like say on a build environment. You have a deployment server in a certain section, and you have pieces, the specific network VLAN'd off so that it's specific only to deployment and imaging. You could effectively respond to any system on that environment or on that network and allow for the immediate deployment of any images to those unknown systems without having to do any touching to those devices whatsoever. So the deployment solution also gives you the ability to specify different sysprep images or sysprep tasks. So in this case, 64-bit or 32-bit deploy cab file specifically is needed for the deployment of sysprep or the management of sysprep. And what we do with within the platform here is essentially allow for those sysprep files to be deployed and on demand to as the image is being created when we're capturing the image specifically. And then there's system configurations. System configurations give you the ability to make changes to the environment or the device as you go through the process of completing your imaging tasks or any of your scripted OS installation tasks. This gives you the ability to make additional changes to things such as the computer name, or if you wanted to even specify a name range, you could specify different particular fixed text as well as what to start or stop with my system names. Let's say my fixed text is computer or whatever, and then I can specify my range to start at 0001. And as you can see, from a listing of 1 to 10, it would basically automatically iterate the system name for that particular name device. In addition, I can specify the domain, standard credentials to specify exactly how I want my user to be able to do it, how I want this computer to be added to the domain, as well as any specific settings that I need to apply to network adapters. And I can apply these settings to these devices, and this gives me the flexibility to be able to do whatever I need to do based on the scenario that I am attempting to accomplish a particular task for. And then the last piece of the settings, or at least the infrastructure portion of deployment server, are tokens. Now, tokens are very powerful. They give you the ability to take text or specify text within a file and modify the text on demand. So I can have a generic based file that has certain information in it that is common across all of my systems, giving me the ability to dynamically import or inject settings into that file on demand. So we'll go into tokens in a little bit as well. So the thing is, though, is that there's multiple ways that you can do different things. In a lot of cases, some people have the ability to, or have the desire to deploy systems from a bare metal standpoint, starting from scratch, and basically also having the requirement or necessity to re-image a system that's currently in use. And let's say, for example, we take the re-image scenario. The problem with that typically is a user will call into the help desk and they'll say there's an issue specific to this particular device that they're using. And after a little bit of troubleshooting, the help desk technician determines that the easiest way or quickest method to be able to resolve this is to simply re-image the device. And so the problem with that is typically the user's information is all gone at the end. Because the device is re-imaged, there's nothing left of that specific user's original settings, their files and folders. Things are missing. And so what we do for that is something called PC transplant. I'm going to show you guys a job, a re-image job, and it's very simple. There's nothing to it. The idea here is just essentially that we're going to create a task, or a job rather. In fact, I suppose I should clarify these as well. The difference between a job and a task is simply a job gives you the ability to add additional tasks to it. These are all specific tasks within my environment. And I can add those tasks to any job and then deploy a job to a device. And deploying jobs to devices is very simple. All I have to do is click and hold and hover over a specific device and deploy that particular piece to that specific user or device in this case. So in this case, I dropped my re-image task onto my Win7 VM, and I could very easily schedule this to push right now. So from a jobs and tasks standpoint, essentially the difference is a job is nothing more than a placeholder or an encapsulator for all of your tasks that you want to run on a specific environment. So to show you very quickly too, this re-image current computer piece, what I've done is I created a couple of tasks that are built in by default. For those of you that are not familiar with the Symantec management platform, there are, if you just simply go to manage jobs and tasks, it brings you to a default screen that has all of the different jobs and tasks that are available out of the box. You also have the ability to create your own or import additional jobs and tasks. So, for example, I've actually imported a couple of different pieces back to my jobs and tasks. Essentially, the samples or the pieces that come with the solution, the sample system jobs and tasks, you have the ability to do certain things by default from different pieces such as imaging, monitoring, and alerting, the different notification server pieces, as well as standard package delivery. If you have the additional pieces such as patch management installed, you have the ability to do different pieces of things such as check and software updates, so on and so forth. The list of tasks specifically are very large. So back into my re-image computer job here, what I did was I ran a capture personality task. So I could very easily create a new task by just choosing new and then selecting from the list of tasks that are available here. I chose capture personality. Now capture personality, this works off of the PC transplant solution. And as you can see, whenever I go to add a new capture personality task, it asks me to select a specific template. Now, by default, the templates that are provided by the semantic management platform, there are some generic pieces or some generic settings that allow you to make simple changes, or they'll save simple pieces, simple things, just the default, as well as standard DNA, which is basically all of the typical settings of a user, the desktop background, their favorites, all of their deterministic links that are on the specific system that they have at this time. So anything that is specific to the settings for that particular user, you have the ability to very easily extend or just simply utilize the default pieces here. So in my case, we ran a simple capture personality task that captured all of those settings. And then the next step is to simply reboot that system to automation. Now, automation in this case, if you'll notice, my automation task is simply nothing more than deploying to a specific Pixie image or an automation environment, depending on what the task is or the infrastructure environment that you have available to you. And then I deploy the image. Now, the image, how do I deploy an image if I haven't captured one yet? So the first thing I need to do is technically capture that image. So the best way to do that is by utilizing 3 separate little tasks. One is to simply prepare an image for capture. The second one is to simply create that Windows 7 image or with whatever type of OS it is that you're particularly trying to capture at that time, and then reboot that system to production. What these tasks do, very simply, is from a prepare image task, we're simply stating that we're going to utilize a certain OS with a specific product key, as well as who the user is that is going to specify the credentials for adding that system to the domain after the capture is complete, if necessary. And then what do we want to reboot to? At this stage, I could state that from within the prepare capture image task that I wanted to reboot to Pixie or to automation, and then I can specify who I want to run it against. Once I've done that capture, then I have the image itself, then it's now available. I have within my task list here all of these one-off tasks that I then add to my jobs. Once I've deployed the image to the system, I need to reboot it to production. The problem is, though, is that the user's data is still missing. Well, what the semantic management platform has done, or what the deployment solution with PC Transplant has done, is it's added or it's captured that personality for the user itself and has saved it in a location that is generic enough for the particular personality name to be recaptured and deployed back to this system. So even though the system information may be different, due to the way that the semantic management platform manages the agent settings specific to deployment server, those settings then allow this device to be able to pick up the information that was specific to it based on the personality for that particular user. So once the user then gets these settings applied to them, we'll restart the system, and then any additional tasks that would need to be run after it can be run at that time. The thing that's so neat about the semantic management platform, and specifically with deployment server now, gives us the ability to integrate all of the pieces within or utilize all the pieces within the semantic management platform in order to be able to deploy whatever we need to deploy based on the business need, business requirement. I can very simply capture all the tasks or utilize all the tasks that I have that I need for a specific job and add those tasks by simply adding existing tasks to the environment. Once I deploy that job to the system, then whatever needs to run after, I can specify how to do that at a later date as well. Now, what about the type of scenario where you need to deploy a device very quickly? And it's typically asked, well, what do I do in order to get the agent to kind of check in quickly and to know that there are additional tasks that need to run, such as patching, patching the device or installing additional software. So just as I showed here, I can simply add a particular job or add a one-time task, in this case, to run 7-zip install. I can chain those tasks to this job as much as I would like. Another method, though, of doing this is to specify particular settings for my agent itself, so the agents and plugins. So when I look at my semantic management agent, if I view specific settings for this particular agent, I've created a new filter, and I've specified for that filter, and I'll show you a filter in just a moment, that I want to deploy very quickly. So I have two targets here. Let me show from a computer standpoint. So I have within the standard function all desktop computers excluding site servers. Well, if I wanted to add an additional rule that stated any systems that are that have checked in or have had their agent installed within the last, I don't know, hour or 2 hours, then I can specify, or I've created a filter called computers created in the last hour. All right, so I created this filter, and all I did was I created a raw mode SQL query to allow me to determine something very simple. And thank you to one of the Symantec engineers for helping with this. It's a very simple query, but select distinct GUID from the computer, where the date diff is from an hourly standpoint, created date. So this particular created date is when the agent itself was initially created. And I want to state that if it's less than 1 hour, then I want to specify or determine exactly the devices that are within this particular filter. And this now gives me the ability to target that filter from an agent setting or an agent standpoint to allow for a different type of scenario, a more aggressive based approach to viewing the details about my system. So I can change the configuration poll period to just a couple of minutes to force this thing to check back in every few minutes to determine whether or not there are any additional tasks or additional jobs that need to run. One other thing that I wanted to show here is the fact that once I'm done with this creation, so I have all of my computers created within the last hour that have this target setting to them, basically applying this policy to this environment, forcing that system to check in over and over again to ensure that it gets everything that it needs. Once I'm done with that, then you can specify basically all of the systems are going to move to, or they'll be pulled out of this particular filter. And so then any of the standard filters for your typical computer creation or desktop computers here, such as my system here, gives me the ability to very rapidly modify that particular configuration period for these particular users. That way it's a less aggressive approach, and they're no longer checking in with the server on a very active basis. So this is simply giving you the ability to very quickly take those new systems and deploy additional pieces, additional software or settings to them on demand. One other thing that is offered by the Symantec support team is actually a grouping of these tasks that will allow you to be able to use them for different samples. And so ITS, as a consulting organization, we have different methods of setting up the jobs and tasks for our customers dependent on the business need or whatever is required at that time. And so what you can do, though, is view some of the samples from Symantec. You can import this task. It's actually an NSI file that was created by the support team, and it gives you a little bit more detail about the specific jobs and tasks that are available. One of the things that it does, though, and I'll give you guys a link to this this NSI file at the end of the demonstration. But essentially, everything that I showed within the portion above, they also did within the platform here, giving you the ability to utilize any type of job or any type of task rather, and apply it to your users, to your devices. And so in this case, I have essentially the same type of scenario. I can capture an image with ImageX, or this is a little old, even capture my Windows 7 enterprise image, and it's utilizing the same base types of tasks that I showed previously. So I can prepare I still need to prepare my system for capture, which essentially pulls all of the agent details or the specific computer ID or machine GUID details out of the registry for the specific device that you're trying to capture. And then once you pull those pieces out, it gives us the ability to allow the agent to be installed on the image to allow for immediate remediation and policy capture once the image has been deployed to the system. So then there's different scenarios within these settings or within the sample task package here, giving us the options of being able to utilize initial deployment. So when to deploy the specific imaging pieces, what to do at the end, and then in this case, there's a generic system configuration that's applied at the end. And this generic configuration is nothing more than something that was specified via a separate configuration task, or you can also specify to restore system configuration based on inventory data. So let's say, for example, an inventory has been run on the system that you've already deployed to your user, and you want to be able to restore that system detail back based on the information, the inventory information. That way, it will return the system to the closest state that it was in prior to the re-image task taking place. So again, some of these tasks give you the ability to prepare a system for retirement. There's a script in the settings piece here that allows you to do a complete DoD-based wipe of the disk. That way, you know definitively that it has been able to be retired properly. So you're trying to retire this. It removes all the information from the disk and then allows you to do the standard maintenance tasks after with the specific hardware. Then again, an upgrade and redeploy. This is again the same type of scenario I showed previously. Running a capture personality, rebooting that device to an automation environment so that you can deploy the new image. Once it's done with that image deployment, reboot it to production, and then continue. These tasks, again, are all available on the Symantec Connect website, and I'll show you guys that piece in just a moment here, or I'll send you the link for that in just a second. So the last piece that I wanted to talk about really is drivers. Drivers are difficult. They seem to be very difficult in many arenas. There's my hair pulling piece. Device and software drivers. So one of the things that is so difficult about drivers is that there's a couple of different pieces to what a driver is or what's associated to it. And so as an example, a computer is not necessarily a specific make or a specific model. So you have your Dell or your IBM or your HP-based device, and you may order in bulk from those vendors, any number of systems, and they're all exactly the same kind of device. Let's say a Dell Latitude E6500, for example. And if you order 50 of them, and they're all supposed to be exactly the same, when you receive that device, what ends up happening is the information about that device is a lot different than what you expected. There's different resource gaps within the solution or within the drivers themselves that are different between each different hardware type or each different piece of hardware. So although you may have the same video card or the same sound card or even disk within each of the systems, the vendors tend to offer different drivers depending on the specific tasks of that particular device or whatever is required for at that time for that specific iteration of the device. What makes things difficult with that, though, is we as IT, whenever you deploy an image to a system and it doesn't have sound, there's a phone call that's made to the help desk, and the help desk then basically tries to figure out exactly what the issue is, and then the next piece that steps into here is you have an incomplete image. And we as IT administrators tend to be the fix to those problems. So we end up creating a new software delivery package or a new software package from somewhere and deploying the drivers for that specific device to that one individual at that time. What ends up happening over time, though, is you end up having to manage tons and tons of different device drivers, and trying to figure out all of those different things makes life very difficult. There are a couple of methods that Symantec has given us the ability to utilize for managing drivers. There's in my consideration, there's a good, better, and best method, and I'll show you the good and the better, and then I'll show you the best. So out of the gate, the typical driver management or the ability to manage drivers are offered from Symantec with a solution called Deploy Anywhere. A deploy anywhere gives you the ability to add drivers. You just simply specify the location of that driver, and then it will attempt to ingest that driver into the deploy anywhere database. The thing is, though, is that it tends to be a little limited with what you're allowed to pull in. So although you have the option of bringing in not only mass storage devices and network devices, those are typically the only two types of drivers that you can bring into the environment or bring into the deploy anywhere database, which is great because it gets us initially off the ground with being able to deploy to a bare metal machine from a network standpoint and a mass storage device driver standpoint. And very simply, just as I showed, you simply click Add here and specify the exact driver or device driver that you want to import at that time. Deploy Anywhere also gives you the ability to add pre-boot drivers. So if there are different drivers for certain onboard NICs that you may have or something along those lines, this gives you the ability to simply add those drivers for the pre-boot environment. Again, though, this is only the mass storage devices and network devices. What ends up happening is we want to install additional drivers, sound cards or video drivers, or maybe there's additional peripherals that you want to deploy to your environment. In order to manage and maintain all of those drivers, it tends to become a headache. Now, Deploy Expert is a managed driver or is a driver management solution. It's a third-party add-on to the Symantec management platform, but it perfectly integrates into the solution. It was really developed to automate standardized image deployment, and it basically it analyzes all systems in the environment, and then it distills model groupings into the Symantec management platform into separate classes of systems composed of completely identical devices. That way, it allows you as the administrator to be able to see and manage every single hardware component in the enterprise. And as your devices evolve, as you get new devices, as things change, it gives you the ability to completely harvest fully functional drivers from each different device type and allow you to store them in a single instance driver type repository, allowing you to keep your driver library lean and very easily manageable. All required drivers, such as third-party peripherals, are seamlessly integrated into your hardware-specific jobs and task sequences, and it allows you to bring new systems, add them, move them, changes. As moves and changes are very simply automatically detected and handled. That way you don't have to worry about any of the driver management going forward. Once we're done with driver management and we've completely deployed all of our devices, that's when we move into simply managing the functions of the solutions themselves or the devices themselves. So you deploy your software to your environment, you create your policies, you specify targeted software inventories, and then you manage that system from start to finish. The thing about deployment solution is that it's more than just imaging, it's more than just image creation and cloning. It gives you all of the ability to do flexible job and task management, as well as advanced deployment and scripting logic. You can simply do anything with the deployment solution. It is one of the most robust solutions, imaging solutions out on the market today. And based on its integration pieces within the Symantec management platform, it gives you the ability to do anything that you need to within your environment to completely manage from the entire life cycle of that device from start to finish. There's just some contact information and my links, the links for pieces that I was specifically discussing previously, as well as some contact information for the Altrinsic team to be able to discuss the Deploy Expert solution a little bit. So I'd like to thank you all for taking the time today to review this webinar with me, and see you next time.